they are. So a student got quite interested in my murky past, and so he said he would like to document some of it. And so we thought, well, it might be a chance to sort of open it up with some students. Yes, but I wouldn't like to think you were expecting a formal lecture. I would go to the British Museum personally or something. Yes. So for instance, in this box, this is when I was in my Buckminster Fuller phase. And some of these are actually quite rare, you see. And what's interesting is how far ahead he was, that he anticipated all the issues that we have now. You know, I thought this was a nice thing, a diagram of useful life of products. So a washing machine, 5 years, and a ship, 30 years. So I don't know, it might be all terribly dull for you, but I thought he was a really interesting man and hugely influential at that time, and I think he needs to be rediscovered. So the things that I would discuss with students are just those sorts of things, and hopefully what Eddie and I do, we run this project called AALAWuN, right, local, which is an acronym for Locally Available World Unseen Networks, which sort of dominate our culture. And we tried to work very directly with students. In other words, the AA has this tutorial system where the tutor is like a sort of little god, you see, and the students go and they listen and then they do as they're told. So we tried to identify things which students initiate, and then we try to help them do it. So I think I don't know how it works in Stuttgart, the unit, whether you have units, but
we don't have a classical unit system. We have a class system, but it's a bit watered down, so it's not quite.
Well, the AA pioneered this system about 60 years ago, and it's still there. And our suggestion is it shouldn't be still there. It should have changed. But and there are quite a few tutors from your country as well. And I think one of the things they enjoy about it is the sort of power you have. You have this little empire of 12 students, you know, and they're your babies, and you can nurture it and stop them meeting people like me or Eddie or you, see. So anyway, the idea was that I've got all of this ephemera, this debris from a wasted youth, and it's all quite old. For instance, this is when I was in America, and it was just the beginning of the space program, and I wrote to NASA and said, could they send us some information on what they're doing? And you don't expect anything, do you? You wouldn't now. But then two huge boxes arrived, full of all of this research about rocket engines and things. So I thought that was really exciting. And I sort of think, well, if only a building might look like that, then and that's some of that stuff. And also, but it was quite extraordinary. I like this one because I had to make a model of a house. And this is a proper wireframe. You draw wireframes, don't you? You talk about a wireframe in your computer game. But I had to make it out of wire and solder it all together. So I don't know which is the best way. Certainly they're very different. You know, one is very analog, I suppose, and one.
How deep is that, though? Is it quite
How
flat?
big is that?
Yeah, and is that shadow? Is that the back of it?
It's about that big. Yeah, and about that big, like that. It was model for a house. So look, this all comes out as it is. All right. This is that. This is, but more recently, see, it's all out of order in time, so being a very unruly, untidy person, and lazy girl, okay, really lazy. I wouldn't get through the AA. I could boot it out very soon. So this was about 10 years ago, a project called Invisible University, which I ran. The question behind it was, how is new technology, or why isn't new technology, information technology and stuff, completely rearranging what a university might be? In other words, I don't know, can't speak for Stuttgart, but we all know in London what's happened to banks. As a building, they're disappearing and just going onto the internet. So we decided a newsagents was a good place to start a university, and this is Jack's newsagent in. And opposite was a really nice hotel called Zetta's, where architects go. It's really beautifully designed.
Is still there, isn't it?
Yeah, and so we thought, we arranged that the bar of Zetta's could become our classroom. They agreed, as long as it was in the mornings. And the lady at Jack's newsagents agreed to sell the prospectus and other documents if we painted the outside of her.
And did you paint it?
Which we did,
Let's
yeah.
see.
Fortune magazine, right? This was quite a recent one, but I met Cedric Price. You can't come to the AA without hearing the word name Cedric Price, the utterly misused, poor man who he hated schools of architecture, actually, didn't he?
I think so.
Yes, he did. He was actually a London University offered him a professorship. And he wrote a letter back saying, I would rather be thrown into a pit of rabid elephants than be a professor at your university. Anyway, he gave me a tutorial when I was a student, and I never wrote to thank him, and he never forgot.
He never forgot.
Every time I saw him, I mentioned it before, he would say, you never wrote me to thank for my time. Anyway, he told me that what to read. He said, don't read any architecture magazines, read Fortune magazine, because it's the magazine of money, big capitalism's magazine. And he said, if you want to know what's going on, you need to know who's got the money and what are they spending it on. And so I used to get Fortune magazine. And that was a bit like Buck. It was full of sort of graphs about world trade, and you know that when you see architecture, you see money, don't you, really? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you want to know who has power, you look at who's building the architecture.
I think I saw it briefly.
What
it
is
was
that
before
then?
I entered.
That's the
old
first
telephone.
installation of, yes, you see how long ago
I
it
know,
was.
it looks ancient.
An installation at the ICA, which Archigram did. And I had this space, and I don't know whether I've got any of them in this particular box. But what I did, I wrote, because there was no email then, a long time before email, I got a list of all the world's television broadcasting stations, and I wrote to as many as I got the energy to do so, which is I think, about 60, and gave them the date, which was the date when the exhibition was on, of what television probe they had on that particular day. And so I got this huge pile of listings, magazines. Some it was just typewritten, smaller countries. But the extraordinary thing was, looking through them all, that during the week, Sesame Street was on somewhere in the world every week. It was quite extraordinary. So it's the most powerful bit of political propaganda you could imagine, really, isn't it? So anyway, I pinned up, I just had a sort of file with all of these listings magazines and an old television set with a picture and a West Ham United scarf draped over it, and this, which was the log plug. Well, this is called a slide. You think you have slides on that's all your laptop is mimicking is these, is that not so?
It's a colour positive.
Archigram number 6. That's a nice one. Very nice.
Yes, this is.
Yeah, but so
For
this
some
is,
reason, this archigram is in there.
That's nice, isn't it?
Well, it's very different from AA files, isn't it? So it probably looks really kind of rough, because you're so used to high quality graphic and laser printing, aren't you? But we did. So we had very primitive printing equipment. I forgot what it was called.
Looks very
And so
cool.
I think somebody told me they'd seen one of these in a shop window. Was it you?
Yeah.
I wonder how much do they sell it for?
£750.
Wow.
Give it
I
back.
don't really. Keep in mind. And I know, yes, this was done as part of a Milan Triennale, which the theme was the greater number. And this was a big inflatable that we put all, so that was, I don't know, about 7 meters long or so, a big inflatable with all of the drawings inside and stuff. I'll tell you these sort of anecdotes that made me dull. I don't know. It was quite interesting because the show was closed by the unions. Somebody was seen using a screwdriver without a union card, and it was
Without a union?
without a union card. They weren't. I don't know whether any of you have ever worked in exhibitions or shows, but places like Olympia, because I used to do a lot of fashion shows for Paul Smith, and places like Olympia and a union closed shop, if you lift something and you haven't got a card, then they'll just close the whole thing. So you have to be really careful. So that's a little. I don't know whether I can't imagine building sites are like that. But, so underwater. So each thing tried to. Gordon Pask tried to deal with a sort of different.
So, for example, how many people would work on one of these, one paper?
The group, there were 6 of us.
Yes. And all of you participated for each one?
Well, if you imagine a dysfunctional family, you meet at breakfast time, and so it was very haphazard, yes. It's you see, this has got Peter Cook's name on, right? And he stole that from me. And put his name on it, you see. Because I was really interested in... I know this going to sound really stupid, and you see, you start being interested in the cars like this, and then you see a picture like this. And then so it was supposing that was a kind of transient village where people are always in their cars, and then they become campers. And then what do they need? What they need then is there's a log plug. because you need some electricity and you need some water and stuff and a telephone because there were no mobile phones. So then he bloody stole that that I had found in a magazine. Yeah, well.
It looks so contemporary.
This is Bonnie Barrett, Queen of the San Francisco Sports and Boat Show. And she was employed to market artificial landscape elements, rocks and logs and things like that. Part of the promotion was she was in a nice leopard skin bathing costume, sitting on an artificial rock with an outboard attached to it. You're American. That's the sort of thing Americans do. Going around San Francisco Bay. And so I thought, that's amazing. And so then then that seemed to resonate with this picture that Peter Cook had stolen from me here. And so then I drew the log like that.
Wow.
So you wouldn't get a diploma with a drawing like that, would you?
You would.
In my own defence, I could draw better. I think I could have drawn better than that. But I tried to draw it in a very simple way and tried to mimic the sort of because by this time I was working in an architect's office, the sort of format that you had where you signed your name and put the date on. And remember, you didn't have, you have all these type, you can say, you've got how many fonts to choose from?
Something like that.
Hundreds, aren't there, you see?
Oh, nowadays.
Yeah, well, you didn't have that to choose from, so you used your hands.
So what did you do to the log to insert electricity? You would just take it, plug it from the ground.
Yes, the electricity would come in. So this is it here. So it come in here like that into the log with this drawing with a bit removed. You see, and then you'd have a range of logs and a range of rocks, and then you could. Make a landscape that then in your car you could drive it up to, and then I haven't got a drawing here, and you could book a log, so you'd go on to you'd phone up. So, I mean now you'd look at it on here, wouldn't you? Say, oh, that's a good log, I want that. So the Airbnb would be renting rocks and logs. But of course, it's a project that was totally out of date now because of mobile phones and things. You don't.
So the rock would be for water and the log for electricity?
No, they would vary.
Okay.
Yeah, some would only have perhaps electricity, others might have. So that's when you'd have a range on your phone. I suppose I'm a bit of a junkie when it comes to images, you know. And then eventually, the working method was to try to distill them down, like this one. This is very weird. This is a hairbrush that senses your hair.
Like an AI kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so.
Smart brush.
That was part of a project that I'd done when I was thinking about makeup. There was some research going on as to how you could connect your nervous system directly to information, sort of bypassing your brain sort of thing.
It's like...
So as imagine you could put, as you're putting on your lipstick in the morning, or that you'd actually be putting in some information from something or other.
Like
And
early,
it'll happen, won't it?
yeah, like transhumanism now, no? When people insert, I think it's a bit different when people insert like SIMs or cards or bank accounts, so they just...
Yes, you have a microchip, yes. Yeah, I suppose that's one of the things, everything seems to have this, somebody's dream is somebody else's nightmare, isn't it? Oh, this was for... this is very architectural. This is from Hello magazine. Have all these, text hello to vote. You have to vote, on who's got the best dress and things. Who's way ahead in the style stakes, you see. I was imagining we could do another version, where this is PVA, that's Ava, here's John Pharmacy, and here's Yolanda. So the A could have this style stakes competition.
Who do you think?
Who's the most stylish wag? I don't know, I collected this. Who is the most stylish on the school run? Yeah, so I suppose that thing about hair connected with this sort of extreme makeup, this sort of architecture, body architecture.